Ex cheated on me and falsely accused me of, so I exposed her to everyone she knew. When I invited my 3-year crush, Kate, out for coffee in late May 2016, she said yes. After 3 dates, we decided to go forward with it. We had a relationship that seemed too good to be true for 7 months throughout that time period. There was very little that we differed on since we had so many interests. We were tremendously honest with each other, which resulted in a fantastic life. We both had wonderful careers, so we had money to spend on each other, and both of our families were encouraging of our relationship. In January 2017, I was accepted into the Armed Forces Reserve program of my nation, where I would serve as a combat engineer. During the months of February and April, I was in basic training, which was the most difficult thing I had ever done in my life. A number of times, I doubted my ability to complete my degree, and Kate's words of encouragement, delivered through email and phone conversations, were the only thing that helped me persevere. She was there when I obtained my BTC certificate, and she never forgot how proud she was of me at the time. My reserves work would need me to go away for advanced training during the summer, from early June to late August, as part of my responsibilities. Kate was completely supportive of my decision to travel 400 kilometers to the training center and spend almost the whole of our summer vacation attempting to further my military training career. For me, it was a challenging summer since I was a social outsider in every clique that developed on our course, and I was the punchline to a barrage of jokes throughout it. My self-esteem had fallen, but Kate's confidence in me was the only thing that kept me moving forward. I finished in 5th place and owe everything to her. The Great Recession is a period of economic downturn. When we returned home, our relationship began to deteriorate rapidly. She claims that I wasn't as spontaneous and outgoing before I went on the trip. I was snobbish, took little jabs and jokes personally, and preferred to stay at home, watch movies, and I'd rather than go out into the world. As a result of the events of the summer, I had acquired acute social anxiety, which had begun to negatively impact our relationship without either of us realizing it. Towards the end of our 2-year anniversary celebration in 2018, we were embroiled in a furious dispute over a minor misunderstanding and ultimately decided to call it quits. I was depressed until she called me 3 days later and said she wanted to try to make things right. I hadn't seen her in 3 weeks, but we maintained in contact on a daily basis, and things were gradually getting better. Nothing seemed the same when we were formally let back into the fold. Every time I spoke with her, I felt as if I were walking on eggshells, which increased my nervousness and exacerbated our already strained relationship. Finally, at the end of July, everything came to a head. Kate had met a guy called John when she was in the throes of her pain at school. She saw in John what she recognized in me, and the two of them became close friends. His words of comfort were there for her after our separation, and he was there for me every time I made a mistake after that. For the record, I was aware of John's existence, but I had no expectation that Kate would engage in any kind of relationship with him. After work one night, we had arranged for me to spend the night at Kate's place, which I did. When I arrived, the two of them were seated on the living room sofa, looking at each other with a calm expression. Kate informed John that he had dropped by on the spur of the moment and was on his way out of the house. Following John's departure, she became chilly and distant. I came to terms with the fact that our relationship was over and inquired as to how things were going between us. She agreed with me, and the following day, we made the decision to call it quits. She told me I could stay another night, since it was late, and she was still worried about me, and she was right. From that point on, Kate was excessively attached to and protective of her phone, and she remained that way until she fell asleep. She wouldn't have worried if I had peeked over her shoulder and seen her and her pals messaging about anything, but she was doing all she could to keep the device hidden from me at the time. Asked about it, she responded by saying it was a personal affair, which further heightened my concerns. After she had fallen asleep, my inquisitiveness got the better of me, and I gained access to her phone, for which I already had the password, and discovered hundreds of texts between her and John. Messages about how she was now single, how wonderful it was that they were now able to be in a public relationship, and how she was always happy at everything I did. I cried quietly as I went through each terrible phrase one by one. My sobbing weren't as silent as I had hoped they would be. When Kate found out what I was up to, she had a temper tantrum and walked out of the room. After unable to summon the rage or the words to confront her, I just packed my belongings and went out, Kate cursing and yelling the whole while. My emotions were completely overwhelmed, and I wept uncontrollably all night until I returned home late in the morning. The next day, I phoned in sick and sulked in my bed for the rest of the day. An avalanche of furious messages from Kate's friends and family flooded my inbox the next day. She spread the word to everyone she knew that I had forced myself on her that night in one last desperate effort to get some before we split up, and that I had left after the deed was done in order to protect her reputation and denounce whatever I said about her in public. However, despite the fact that she considered what I had done to be scarring, she decided not to pursue charges because she didn't want to make a spectacle out of her life in court and felt she would be the greater person if she did. I spent the following few months terrified that her allegations would lead to my dismissal from the Army and the establishment of a permanent mark on my reputation, but nothing came of it. In retribution, Kate sent me a direct message 5 months later. Following the niceties, she essentially apologized for everything and confessed to fabricating everything. But she would never reveal this to the public in order to protect her personal reputation and that of the company my image be. I was angered by this, but I managed to keep my cool. I proceeded to talk with her while simultaneously collecting screenshots of our conversations on the phone. These events occurred over the next 3 months for her, and they were as follows. She'll complain about a current life situation, usually about John screwing up in their relationship in some way and seeking advice. She'll lament our relationship, saying how she's never screwed up like John did, how she wishes we could go back to the way things were, and so on. She'll ignore me because John pulled his head out of his, did some huge romantic gesture, and saved their relationship. She'll launch an online campaign to discredit our relationship. She'll say anything she wants. This happened 3 times in a row, leaving me exhausted and depressed each time, but it was something I wanted to happen for some reason. I took screenshots of her every time she said anything that I found interesting. My SD card was completely filled of all the information that I had obtained by the time I finally decided it was time to move on. I bought a lot of manila envelopes and addressed them to everyone I thought would be significant to Kate. Her parents, grandparents, extended family she was particularly close to, closest friends, job supervisor, coworkers, teachers, and anybody else I could find a postal address for. I made sure that whomever got the letter knew that the messages were between me and Kate before sending them. In 3 weeks, I got my findings. Some of them who had previously messaged me in order to shame and criticize me have now apologized for their remarks. My favorite came from her parents, who went on to say that they were deeply sorry for their daughter's behavior, that they raised her to be better than how she acted, and that they requested that no legal action be taken. The thought had crossed my mind, but I didn't have the money or the mental fortitude to fight a legal battle. I assured them I'd consider it, and that if I did, they'd be the first to know apart from Kate. Kate also contacted me, asking, "How could you breach my trust like that? And you ruined my life, you jerk." I didn't react. Instead, with a happy grin, I read every angry text that came in and blocked her when they stopped. I never learned how much my revenge had impacted her life, but I do know she dropped out of school and lost her job. I'm hoping that was worthwhile for John. Thank you all so much for your kind messages of support. Many people have expressed worry about my mental health, so I thought I'd assuage their concerns. I've been seeing a therapist for 3 months now and have made significant progress. I can't describe how thankful I am to her for supporting me in recovering some kind of normalcy in my life.